everyone and welcome back to YNR CBS Spoiler today. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up right now. Because what is happening between Phyllis and Kane is the kind of storyline that makes you forget to breathe. And I need to talk about every single second of it. Phyllis Summers had spent entire life walking the razor's edge between brilliance and destruction. And for a long time she has managed to keep her balance with this time. This time the edge has crumbled underneath her and she is in free fall. Kane's rage, patient, calculated, terrifyingly precise, has been closing in around her like a trap she didn't see being set until it was already snapped shut. What started as whispers and unsettling shadows has escalated into a full scale war of wills, culminating in a confrontation inside an isolated warehouse that neither of them will walk away from unchanged. The question is no longer whether this collision will happen, it already has. The question now is who, if anyone, survives it with their soul is still intact. Let's start from the beginning because this story deserves that respect. Phyllis Summers is not a woman who frightens easily. She has gone toe to toe with some of the most formidable, dangerous people in Genoa City and come out the other side still standing, still sharp, still entirely herself. So, when the whispers began, those quiet, uneasy murmurs passing between people in dimly lit spaces whenever her name came up, most assumed she would handle it the way she always handled things, with defiance, with intelligence, with that particular brand of fearlessness that has always been her most dangerous weapon. But something about this situation was different from the very start, and on some level, even Phyllis could feel it. Kane's anger wasn't the kind that flares and burns itself out. This wasn't impulsive, this wasn't chaotic. It was the opposite, measured, deliberate, and building with a terrifying momentum that set it apart from anything Phyllis had faced before. And as the whispers grew louder and the signs began staking up around her, even she could not dismiss what was happening. A car sitting outside her apartment for far too long, a message delivered to her phone from a number with no identity attached to it. That persistent, crawling sensation of being observed, not casually but studied, tracked, catalogued, even someone with Phyllis' iron nerve would feel that. Even she would feel the cold fingers of that creeping in, but what did she do? She doubled down. Because that is who Phyllis is. She turned around and started digging, convinced that if she could just get far enough ahead of Kane, she could flip the board the way she always has. What she didn't yet understand, and this is the part that makes it so chilling, is that Kane was already 10 moves ahead of her. The thing about Kane in this storyline that makes him so genuinely frightening is the precision of it all. His anger wasn't born of impulse, it had been sharpened over time by betrayal, refined by pain, and twisted by a need for justice that had slowly and quietly mutated into something far darker. To Kane, Phyllis wasn't simply someone who had crossed him or gotten in his way. She was the architect, the person whose decision and manipulation had set a chain of events into motion that had caused damage he could never undo, and because of that, his plan for her wasn't just revenge in the conventional sense, it was dismantling. It was the slow, methodical stripping away of the everything she had, her power, her connections, her sense of control, until there was nothing left to fight with. I cannot stress how terrifying that is, because anyone can defend against an explosion. It's the slow erosion that breaks you. The turning point arrives on a night that begins with Phyllis believing she'll still hold some cards worth playing. She arranges a meeting, walks in with her composure locked down tight, fully convinced she can extract whatever information she needs to gain leverage and turn the situation around. And then the moment she steps into that room, that dim, too still, too quiet room, every instinct she has fires at once. Something is wrong. The air is wrong. The silence is wrong. And then she sees him, Kane, standing in the shadows, expression unreadable, presence filling the space in a way that does not require volume or movement, to be absolutely dominating. For the first time, genuinely the first time in a long time, Phyllis Summers feels afraid. And I mean, really afraid. Not the manageable, redirectable kind of fear she knows how to weaponize, but something rawer and more unsettling than that. What makes this confrontation so masterfully constructed is what Kane doesn't do. He doesn't shout, he doesn't lose control, he speaks quietly, slowly, with the deliberate weight of someone who has rehearsed this moment in his way so many times that he now inhabits it with absolute certainty. Every word lands with the finality of something that has already been decided. He tells her he knows everything, every lie, every manipulation, every move she thought she had buried deeply enough that no one would ever find it. And as he speaks, Phyllis realizes, and the realization is visible, a shift in her that she cannot quite suppress, that he is not bluffing, not even slightly. He has been watching her, waiting, collecting every fragment, every piece of puzzle, until the entire picture was spread in front of him, in perfect, damning clarity. Imagine being Phyllis in that moment. Imagine being the person who has always been the smartest one in the room, the one who controls the narrative, and suddenly realizing that someone else has been writing a story around you while you weren't looking. Phyllis does what Phyllis do. She tries to fight back, Daniel, deflection, the practiced art of turning blame back onto the person pointing it at her. But Kane doesn't take the bait. He doesn't argue. He doesn't get defensive or rise to any of the provocations she throws at him. Instead, he steps closer, holds her gaze with an intensity that she cannot escape, and delivers the line that stops everything. You think this is a game, but it's not. Not anymore. And the way he says it quietly, with that chilling finality, is somehow more frightening than any raised voice could ever be. Phyllis' mind is racing, scanning every possible angle, every potential escape route, and every single one of them is closed. She has underestimated him, and she knows it. And the price for the miscalculation is now standing right in front of her. What Kane lays out next is not a violent threat, it's something worse. He describes precisely what he intends to do, not in graphic, dramatic terms, but with enough deliberate clarity that Phyllis can see the shape of it unfolding ahead of her, and the path leads nowhere that has a good ending. He isn't just threatening her safety, he is dismantling her life from the foundation up, her deals, her alliances, her power base, and he intends to dismantle every single one of them, layer by layer, until she has nothing left, and then he walks away, leaving her alone in that silence, heart hammering, mind scrambling to resemble itself. That is the moment the dynamic changes irrevocably. Phyllis is no longer the hunter in the story. She is the hunted. The days that follow are excruciating to watch. Deals collapsing without explanation. People she trusted pulling away. Their loyalty quietly eroded by forces she can't see or directly confront. Every attempt she makes to reclaim control is met with resistance, as if her next move is already anticipated before she has even made it. And because this is Phyllis, because surrender is simply not a concept she has access to, the danger ignites something in her rather than crushing her. She starts taking risks that would have given even her former self pause, digging deeper, pushing farther, gambling on information and leverage with a desperation that borders on reckless, because she understands that playing it safe at this point is simply a slower version of losing. And what she finds when she dies, the connections, the revelations, the layers of a larger picture that she hadn't initially seen the borders of, is genuinely explosive. Kane's motivations aren't just about what she did to him. They are tied into something bigger, something that reaches farther and involves more people and more secrets than either of them had fully accounted for. The stakes aren't just personal anymore, they never really were. The final confrontation is set inside an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, isolated, hollow, deliberately removed from any possibility of intervention, and the atmosphere of it is extraordinary. Phyllis arrives already in a state of heightened alert, every sense sharpened, pausing outside to read every shadow before she steps through. She considers briefly pulling back. She dismisses the thought almost instantly. There is no pulling back. Kane is already inside, standing near the center of the vast empty space, relaxed in posture but radiating something new resolution, the particular stillness of someone who has already made peace with their decision. Their exchange is taut and electric, every sentence carrying weight, neither of them willing to give an inch until absolutely necessary. Ken lays it all out, every accusation, every piece of evidence, every connection, with the methodical precision of someone who has been building this case for a very long time. And Phyllis listens, and she processes, and somewhere in the middle of it, she arrives at a truth that unsettles her even as she prepares to use it. He isn't entirely wrong, but he isn't entirely right either. And that gap, that space between what he knows and what he doesn't, is the only weapon she has left. So she uses it. She reveals what she has uncovered. Not a denial, not a deflection, but a reframing, exposing the layers underneath Kane's narrative that shift its meaning in ways he hasn't considered. Other players, other motivations, forces that have been using Kane's very real and very justified anger as a tool, directing it toward Phyllis while something larger moves in the background. This isn't just about you and me, she tells him, and the conviction in her voice carries something it hasn't carried in a while. Truth. You think you are in control, but you have been reacting. Every move you have made, someone else set it up. The doubt that flickers across Kane's face in that moment is one of the most powerful things in this whole storyline. Because doubt in someone, that resolve is enormous, but it isn't enough to stop him entirely. Kane acknowledges her skill, actually says it out loud, which tells you everything about how far they have come, and then keeps going anyway, because he hasn't crossed all of this distance just to stop at finished line. And as the distance between them shrinks to almost nothing, as the air in the warehouse becomes almost impossible to breathe, the weight of everything both of them have done and refused to do, and done anyway, presses down on the scene with an almost unbearable heaviness. The conflict in Kane's eyes is real, the resolve underneath it also real, and the question of which one wins is left hanging in the charged, suffocating air between them. What the storyline is doing, and doing brilliantly, is refusing to let either Phyllis or Kane occupy the comfortable moral position. Phyllis played her games, rewrote rules when they didn't suit her, manipulated alliances and people with a fluency that she genuinely treated as a skill rather than a flaw. And now she's genuinely shocked to find the game has turned against her. And there is something both painful and deeply satisfying about watching that dawn on her. But Kane is not a clean hero either. He allowed his pain to be refined into something colder and more indiscriminate, something that stopped caring about precision and started caring only about destruction. His justice became something that doesn't really observe the name anymore. And then there is the larger shadow that Phyllis is pointing toward. Someone else in the background, orchestrating, benefiting from the collision between two people to consumed by their conflict, to look up and see who lit the fire. If that reveal is coming, and the groundwork being laid suggests it absolutely is, it will recontextualize everything that has come before it. The fallout from this confrontation isn't just personal, it stretches outward into a larger wave of consequence that neither of them has fully mapped yet, and that is where the real danger lies. Here is what I genuinely believe about this storyline. It is operating at a level of psychological complexity that YNR at its very best is capable of and doesn't always reach. The reason it lands so hard is because it's not really about who wins or who loses. It's about what it costs both of them to get this moment. Phyllis has always been someone you root for even when she's wrong, because there is something magnetic and fiercely alive about her refusal to be defeated. And Kane here is someone you understand even as you fear what he's become when revenge feels justified. When the grievance is real and the wound is deep, that's when it's the most dangerous kind. Because it doesn't feel like revenge to the person carrying it. It feels like truth, and that is exactly the trap both of them are standing inside right now. I genuinely don't know who I'm rooting for, and that is exactly how it should feel. So here is where we are. Phyllis and Kane have been hurtling toward this moment for a long time, and now that they have arrived, neither of them can walk away the same person they were before. The possibility of the third player has been pulling strings. This entire time hangs over everything like a storm that hasn't broken yet. And when that reveal comes, and I believe it's coming, it is going to change every single thing we thought we understood about this story. I need to know what you think. Is Kane truly control of his own choices here? Or has he been exactly the instrument that Phyllis is warning him about? And if Phyllis is finally telling the truth in the warehouse, really telling it, why does it still feel like she is holding something back? Drop everything you are thinking in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you felt every bit of the tension, and make sure you're subscribed to Y&R CBS Spoiler today so you are here when the next chapter hits, because something tells me it is going to change everything.